Imagine your entire country crushed, your king hunted like an animal, and the last hope of your people is a fugitive hiding in a cave, armed with nothing but a broken axe and a dream. This is the moment Scotland was never supposed to survive, but did. Today we're diving into one of the most savage, unbelievable underdog stories in world history. The Battle of Bannockburn, a king crowned by murder, an empire marching with 20,000 men, and a tiny nation ready to risk everything for freedom. This isn't textbook history. This is Scotland's greatest fight, told the way it actually happened. Before we jump into today's story, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Follow me as we uncover the hidden battles, secrets, and legends of history that textbooks never tell you. The year is 1306. Scotland bleeds. For 2 decades, its soil has soaked in the price of defiance. English armies march through villages like a storm through wheat, castles burn, and noble families kneel to save their necks. The proud clans of the Highlands and Lowlands, once bound by honor, now turn blades on one another, each seeking survival in a kingdom without a crown. The great houses, hungry for advantage, play a dangerous game. Some pledge allegiance to Edward I of England, the hammer of the Scots, whose mailed fist has crushed every flicker of rebellion. Others cling to old loyalties, but loyalty itself has become a death sentence. Amid this ruin stands one man, Robert the Bruce, the Earl of Carrick, noble, ambitious, and torn between conscience and power. His bloodline gives him claim to Scotland's throne, yet his country lies in chains, and every oath he swears to England tastes like betrayal. Bruce moves carefully through the treacherous courts of both nations, smiling at his English overlords while whispering promises of freedom to his own. It is a perilous dance. The English king distrusts him, the Scottish nobles resent him, and even among his kin, whispers grow that Robert seeks not Scotland's salvation, but his own crown. Still, he cannot stand idle. The English administration, ruthless and efficient, taxes the land into starvation. The people mutter prayers for deliverance, but none dare rise. The flame that once burned in the days of rebellion flickers low, nearly extinguished. In this silence, Bruce begins to move, quietly, secretly. His vision is not of rebellion, but of rebirth. A Scotland unified under one banner, one king, one destiny. But unity will demand blood, and the first blood may have to come from his own countrymen. As winter yields to spring, the air thickens with tension. Spies move between castles, messages vanish, and alliances shift like sand. England's hold seems unbreakable, yet beneath the surface, something stirs. In the shattered heart of Scotland, a man once loyal to 2 crowns begins to dream of taking one for himself. And in the shadows of Stirling and Scone, the first threads of conspiracy tighten, the kind that can either forge a nation or destroy it entirely. Winter has scarcely broken when Robert the Bruce's fate begins to tighten around him like a noose. The kingdom he dreams of leading is still fractured, its nobility divided between loyalty to England and their own ambitions. And at the center of this tension stands John Comyn, Lord of Bannock, powerful, cunning, and Bruce's greatest rival for Scotland's throne. Comyn is everything Bruce is not, deeply connected to the old nobility, the nephew of a former Scottish king, and the man the English trust to keep Scotland docile. For years, the two have danced around each other, allies when convenient, enemies when not. But now both men know the truth. Only one can rule. In February 1306, under the cold gray skies of Dumfries, Bruce rides south under the pretense of peace. England's spies are everywhere, and open war is suicide. He arranges a meeting with Comyn in the Greyfriars Church, sacred ground, a place where even murderers are safe under the church's peace. The air inside is thick with incense and suspicion. No chronicler records their words, but history remembers the silence that followed. Some say Bruce accused Comyn of betrayal, that he had revealed Bruce's plans to Edward I. Others whisper that Comyn mocked Bruce's claim to the throne. What is certain is that Bruce's temper, long held in check, finally broke. In one furious motion, his dagger flashed. The sound of metal against flesh echoed through the church as Comyn fell before the altar, blood spilling across the stones. Shock and silence followed. Holy ground had been defiled. The man who sought to free Scotland had slain a rival in God's house, an act that would brand him sinner, outlaw, and king all at once. Bruce stumbled into the sunlight, pale and shaking. "I doubt I have slain the man," he muttered to his companion, Sir Roger Kirkpatrick. The knight's reply was cold and resolute. "You doubt? Then I'll make sure." Moments later, Comyn lay dead. There is no turning back now. Within days, word spreads across Scotland. Robert the Bruce has killed John Comyn in a church. The church condemns him. The English call him traitor and murderer. But among the Scots weary of submission, something else takes hold. Awe. Bruce has done what none dared, severed all ties to England and cast his lot with destiny. On March 25th, 1306, at Scone Abbey, Bruce is crowned King of Scots. His coronation is hurried, improvised. The crown of Alexander placed upon his head by a handful of loyal lords. No great army surrounds him, only faith and defiance. Yet as the cheers rise, Bruce knows what he has unleashed. The blood on the altar has baptized his kingship. His enemies will not forgive. The Pope will excommunicate him. The English will come for him. And his fragile crown, won by murder, may drown him before it ever saves Scotland. The rebellion has begun, not with a victory, but with a sin that will define a king. The crown sits heavy on Robert the Bruce's brow. It was meant to unite a nation. Instead, it marks him for death. The blood spilled at Greyfriars has transformed him overnight from nobleman to outlaw king. Edward I of England, the Hammer of the Scots, receives word of Comyn's murder and Bruce's coronation with cold fury. His vengeance is swift. He commands that Bruce be hunted down like a beast and his lands seized for the crown. English garrisons flood the lowlands. Rewards are offered for Bruce's capture, dead or alive. Even within Scotland, the new king finds enemies at every turn. Many nobles, especially those loyal to the slain Comyn family, see Bruce not as a liberator, but a usurper drenched in sacrilege. They rally to England's banner, seeking revenge cloaked in righteousness. In the spring of 1306, Bruce gathers what men he can, a ragged host bound by loyalty rather than numbers. They march north only to meet ruin. At Methven, near Perth, Bruce's army is ambushed by English forces under Aymer de Valence, Comyn's brother-in-law. The battle is short and merciless. Hundreds of Scots are slain or captured. Bruce barely escapes with his life. In the days that follow, defeat becomes exile. His remaining followers scatter across the Highlands, hunted like wolves. His wife, Queen Elizabeth de Burgh, and his sisters are taken prisoner. His brother Neil Bruce is executed. Edward's vengeance reaches beyond the battlefield. His message is clear. There will be no Scotland and no Bruce to rule it. The fugitive king flees westward, over moor and mountain, across the jagged heart of his country. The chronicles say he hid in the Isles, moving from cave to cave, his every companion starving or slain. The winds of the North Sea carried his name like a curse, a traitor to the church, a murderer of nobles, a king without a kingdom. In those desolate months, surrounded by nothing but sea and despair, Bruce is forced to confront the enormity of his failure. He has lost everything: his army, his family, his crown. Even his faith wavers. Yet something inside him refuses to die. It is in this solitude that Robert the Bruce begins to change. The ambitious noble becomes a survivor. The fugitive begins to think like a soldier, not a lord. The dream of a united Scotland no longer rests on diplomacy or titles, but on endurance. As winter grips the Highlands, whispers spread through Scotland like embers on the wind. Some claim Bruce is dead, slain by the English or driven into madness. But others, the common folk who have tasted England's cruelty, refuse to believe it. In the taverns and glens they murmur, "The king lives." And in a cave by the sea, a weary man watches the tides break against the rocks, waiting, learning, planning. The hunted king is not gone. He is becoming something else. The Bruce who will emerge from exile will not be the man who fled Methven. He will return as something far more dangerous, a king forged in loss and sharpened by survival. Spring returns to Scotland, and with it, rumors. Some whisper that Robert the Bruce is dead, his bones buried beneath English soil. Others claim he walks the Highlands in disguise, biding his time. Both are wrong, and both are right. The man who once fled Methven has indeed died in spirit. What rises in his place is something colder, harder, and far more dangerous. The year is 1307. From the misty Western Isles, Robert the Bruce returns not as a noble in exile, but as a hunter reclaiming his land. Gone are the silk banners and mounted knights. His followers are few, his weapons crude. But Bruce has learned a truth that the English, for all their might, have not. That Scotland's strength lies in its wilderness and its people, not in castles or crowns. His campaign begins like a ghost story. English patrols vanish in the glens. Messengers never reach their garrisons. At night, watchfires burn on distant hills, signals to men who have learned to fight not as soldiers, but as shadows. Bruce's men strike fast and vanish faster, using forests and bogs as armor. His knowledge of the terrain turns every stream and cliff into an ally. He no longer fights for glory. He fights to bleed the invader inch by inch. Each victory, however small, breathes life back into the dying heart of Scotland. Clans that once doubted him begin to stir. The name Bruce spreads once more, not as a fugitive's shame, but as a call to arms. Then fortune turns. In May of 1307, Bruce meets Emir de Valence again, the same English commander who crushed him at Methven. This time, at Loudon Hill, Bruce is ready. He chooses the ground with precision, soft, narrow, flanked by deep ditches. When Valance's heavy cavalry charges, their momentum dies in the mire. The Scots hold their lines. Spears bristle like iron reeds, and English knights fall by the dozens. It is a reversal so complete that even the chroniclers cannot deny it. The hunted king has become the hunter. That victory does more than avenge Methven. It sends a message across the realm. Scotland, thought broken, has learned how to fight again. Word of Bruce's resurgence reaches England. Edward I, now old and sick, orders one final campaign to crush the rebellion himself. But before he can cross the border, the hammer of the Scots dies. His son, Edward II, inherits both the crown and a war he neither understands nor respects. Bruce seizes the moment. He moves like wildfire, striking across the highlands and lowlands, dismantling English strongholds one by one. Those who once mocked him now kneel before him. Those who betrayed him find their castles reduced to ash. His campaign is not of chivalry. It is vengeance disciplined by patience, politics tempered by survival. By 1313, Scotland's landscape has changed. The English still hold a few key fortresses, among them Stirling Castle, the strongest of all, but their control is fading. The people no longer bow to England's sheriffs. They look to Bruce, the king who rose from exile. The wolf has returned to his territory, lean, scarred, and unrelenting. Every hill, every glen, every village he reclaims is another piece of his soul restored. But Bruce knows that survival is not victory. To win Scotland's freedom, he must face England's might one last time, not in shadows or skirmishes, but in open battle. And that reckoning will come at a place where land and legend will meet. Bannockburn. By the year 1314, Scotland stands on the edge of triumph and destruction. For 8 relentless years, Robert the Bruce has clawed back his kingdom from ruin. The English are driven from nearly every stronghold north of the Forth. Yet one fortress remains, a bastion of stone and pride that refuses to fall, Stirling Castle. Perched above the River Forth, Stirling is more than a fortress. It is the key to Scotland's heart. Whoever holds it commands the gateway between north and south. For Bruce, its capture would mean legitimacy. For England, its loss would mean humiliation. The castle's warden, Sir Philip Mowbray, trapped and desperate, strikes a fateful bargain with Bruce's brother Edward Bruce, who leads the siege. If no English relief arrives by Midsummer's Day, Mowbray vows to surrender. It is an honorable agreement, too honorable as it turns out. The deal reaches England like a spark to dry tinder. King Edward II, desperate to prove himself worthy of his father's legacy, seizes upon it. A victory at Stirling could redeem years of military embarrassment and secure his crown among his restless nobles. He cannot ignore Mowbray's plea. His pride demands war. So begins the greatest gamble in Scottish history. In early spring, word spreads across Britain. The English king is raising a massive army to march north, an army unlike any seen in generations. 15, perhaps 20,000 men. Cavalry in gleaming armor. Archers by the thousands. Knights drawn from the most powerful families of England and Wales. It is a host meant not merely to relieve a castle, but to crush a nation. Bruce knows what is coming. He cannot match Edward's numbers. He cannot meet his knights on open plains. Yet he will not abandon the siege. Stirling is more than stone, it is a symbol. If it falls, Scotland is whole. If it stands under English banners, Bruce's years of struggle could unravel in a single season. He calls his commanders, his brother Edward, Thomas Randolph, and James Douglas, the Black Douglas, feared even by English soldiers. Together they prepare not for a siege, but for a reckoning. Bruce studies the land like a general and a gambler. He knows that Stirling sits between bog and river, that the Bannockburn, a narrow stream flanked by marsh, will slow cavalry and scatter formations. Where Edward sees a battlefield of glory, Bruce sees a trap waiting to be sprung. But even as Bruce sharpens his plans, dissent brews among his own. Some lords fear annihilation. They whisper that the English host is too great, that Scotland's luck cannot hold forever. Others, proud and eager, demand open war. Bruce listens, patient as stone. His answer is simple. We fight not for pride, but because there is no other road to freedom. By June, the English army thunders northward, shaking the very earth beneath its weight. The countryside trembles before its advance. To the south, English banners shimmer like a moving sea of steel. To the north, Bruce's smaller host waits in silence among the low ridges and wooded ground near Stirling. It is here, at the edge of the Bannockburn, that the fate of two kingdoms will be decided. Edward believes he is marching toward an inevitable victory, a final crushing blow to the Scottish rebellion. But Robert the Bruce, forged by exile and failure, knows better. He is not merely defending a castle. He is wagering his crown, his country, and the very idea of Scotland itself. The trap is set, the gamble begins. If this story fascinates you, make sure to subscribe and check the playlist. There are more epic battles and hidden histories waiting to be discovered. The summer sun of 1314 burns over the Scottish hills, gilding armor and banners alike as two kings march toward destiny. On one side, Edward II of England, young, proud, and untested, leads one of the largest armies ever to cross the border. He rides beneath the golden lions of Plantagenet, certain that sheer might will crush rebellion once and for all. On the other, Robert the Bruce, hardened by years of flight and loss, commands a smaller host of men who fight not for plunder or honor, but for the right to exist as a free people. The contrast could not be sharper. Edward travels like a conqueror, trailed by wagons of wine, supplies, and courtiers. His nobles, accustomed to victory on the tournament field, mock the Scots as rabble. Yet beneath their laughter hides rivalry and contempt. Edward's court is divided. His generals distrust him, his barons question his resolve. The king seeks glory to silence their doubts, but arrogance blinds him to the cracks within his own command. Bruce, by contrast, leads with quiet precision. Every step of his campaign is deliberate. He has no illusions about his odds. He knows his army, barely 6,000 strong, cannot survive a frontal assault on open ground. But Bruce also knows the land, the dips of the marsh, the choke points of the stream, the ridges that hem the English advance. Where Edward sees a battlefield, Bruce sees a trap of his own design. As the English columns approach Stirling, their confidence swells. Scouts report a small Scottish force waiting near the Bannockburn, the shallow stream that winds through mud and meadow. To the English, it seems perfect terrain for cavalry, a chance to trample the Scots under hooves and glory. They do not see the danger. Bruce's men work in silence, digging pits, driving sharpened stakes into the soil, concealing them beneath turf and heather. They form tight Schiltrons, circles of spearmen drilled to hold against any charge. Each man knows his place. Each trusts the one beside him. It is not the army of a king, it is the weapon of a strategist. The night before battle, the Scots gather around their fires. There are no grand speeches, no illusions of immortality, only grim resolve. Bruce moves among them without escort, speaking softly to men who once doubted him. His words are not of vengeance, but of endurance. Tomorrow we stand not against an army, but against the memory of our fathers' chains. Across the field, the English camp glitters with torches and arrogance. Music echoes through the night, trumpets, laughter, the clatter of armor. Edward's nobles boast of the spoils they'll claim by noon. Few notice how the ground trembles faintly beneath their feet, soft from rain and marsh. At dawn, mist drifts over the burn, curling like smoke. Two kings rise to meet it, one robed in silk and gold, the other in leather and iron. The Lion of England roars for conquest. The Lion of Scotland crouches in silence, waiting for the moment to strike. Bruce has chosen the ground, the time, and the trap. Edward believes he is marching toward an easy victory, a lamb to be crowned in triumph. But by the next sunset, it will be the Lion of England who learns what it means to be hunted. The battle for Scotland is about to begin. Dawn breaks on June 23rd, 1314, veiled in a low, silver mist that clings to the marshes near the Bannockburn. The English vanguard, thousands of cavalry and archers, stirs restlessly, their armor glinting in the pale light. Across the field, the Scots wait in silence, their spears planted like a forest of iron thorns. The air is thick with anticipation and pride, and somewhere within it, fear. Both armies sense it. Something will break today, either a rebellion or an empire. From the English lines rides Henry de Bohun, a knight of noble blood and fierce temper. As the son of an earl, he carries himself with arrogance, born to command, not to wait. When he spots a lone Scottish rider ahead, he sees not a man, but an insult. The figure is unarmored, mounted on a small horse, wearing no crown, no plume, only a battle axe across his saddle. It is Robert the Bruce himself. For a moment, the two men lock eyes across the field, the king and the knight, predator and prey. The English lines hush as de Bohun lowers his lance and spurs his great warhorse forward, the ground trembling beneath the charge. The Scots cry out in warning, but Bruce does not move. He waits. At the last instant, just as de Bohun's lance lowers to strike, Bruce turns his horse sharply aside. His battle axe arcs through the air, one clean, savage blow that splits de Bohun's helmet and skull. The English knight crashes lifeless to the ground, his horse galloping riderless into the fog. For a heartbeat, silence reigns. Then a roar erupts from the Scottish lines, part disbelief, part triumph. Their king, unarmored and outnumbered, has felled a champion before their very eyes. In that single stroke, Bruce's legend is sealed. His men see not just a commander, but a warrior touched by destiny. Bruce, calm amid the cheers, simply laments the broken shaft of his axe. "I have spoiled my good weapon," he murmurs, a line his soldiers will remember for generations. But the day's fighting is far from over. The English, angered and humiliated, launch a series of reckless assaults to avenge their fallen knight. The Earl of Gloucester and de Clifford lead cavalry across the narrow fords of the burn, charging into the dense thickets of pikes. The ground, wet and soft from recent rains, betrays them. Horses stumble, knights fall, and the Schiltrons close like jaws. From the slopes, Thomas Randolph, Bruce's nephew, commands his men with cold precision, repelling English attempts to flank them. The smaller Scottish detachments, disciplined, patient, deadly, hold their ground against waves of armored men. By afternoon, chaos festers in the English ranks. Their cavalry cannot maneuver in the confined space. Their archers cannot find clear targets. Each charge collapses into confusion, and each retreat turns into panic. The Bannockburn itself, shallow yet treacherous, becomes a grave for men in steel. When the fighting finally halts at dusk, the English have gained nothing but exhaustion. The Scots, though fewer, stand unbroken. Campfires flicker across the high ground, and in the gathering dark, their chants echo like thunder rolling over the hills. Bruce surveys the field as the mist settles again, the smell of blood and earth heavy in the air. His plan is working. The enemy has been drawn into his chosen ground, and tomorrow he will finish what he began. For Edward II, it will be a night of uneasy dreams. He has seen the defiance in the eyes of men who should have fled, and the calm in the face of a king who will not kneel. Tomorrow, the full might of England will strike, and tomorrow, Robert the Bruce will show them what it means to fight for a homeland. The morning of June 24, 1314, rises blood red over the fields of Bannockburn. The air is heavy with mist, the smell of iron, and the low murmur of thousands of restless men who have not slept. The groans of the wounded from yesterday's fighting drift across the stream like ghosts. In the English camp, disorder festers into desperation. King Edward II, his pride wounded, demands a full assault. His nobles, divided, bitter, and humiliated by yesterday's failures, argue among themselves, but the king's will prevails. He cannot retreat, not after marching north with what was said to be the greatest army ever sent into Scotland. Some 15,000 to 20,000 strong, a living tide of steel and banners. Across the burn, Robert the Bruce waits in calm silence with scarcely 6,000 to 8,000 men. His troops stand in tight Schiltrons, spear points glinting faintly in the haze. They are weary but steady, their discipline forged through years of hardship. Where Edward's host is vast and proud, Bruce's army is small but united, each man knowing that behind him stands not wealth or title, but home. At the king's command, the English cavalry begin to move. An ocean of armor and hooves. The ground quakes beneath their weight. The glint of sunlight off 1,000 helmets blinds even the sky. Edward's order echoes, "Forward! Crush them!" Then the land itself turns traitor. The front ranks thunder into the Bannockburn, only to find the stream swollen from rain and the soil beneath a treacherous mire. The heavy destriers sink, their charge losing momentum. Confusion ripples backward through the mass of riders. The formations shatter before they ever strike. From the Scottish lines comes a deep, steady cry. The Schiltrons advance, rows of spears leveled like a wall of thorns. They strike not with fury, but precision. English knights fall, impaled or crushed beneath flailing horses. The weight of their own numbers becomes their undoing. The slaughter grows relentless. Thomas Randolph, Bruce's nephew, holds the center like a rock amid floodwaters. James Douglas, the Black Douglas, harasses the English flanks, cutting off retreat. On the slopes, Edward Bruce drives his men forward, pressing the English deeper into the swamp of their own panic. Longbowmen, England's famed weapon, try to turn the tide, but the field is chaos. Their arrows find more English backs than Scottish shields. Sir Robert Keith, leading the small Scottish cavalry, seizes his moment and scatters the archers before they can regroup. By mid-morning, the great English army begins to die not in battle, but in confusion. The burn runs thick with mud, blood, and broken armor. Men sink and vanish beneath the water's surface, dragged down by their own mail. The cries of the fallen drown the sound of horns. And then comes the moment that shatters the last of England's will. From behind the Scottish lines rises a cloud of dust. Camp followers, cooks, and servants rushing forward, cheering what they believe to be victory. To the exhausted English, it looks like reinforcements. Panic rips through the ranks. Knights throw down swords. Soldiers flee into the burn, trampling their comrades in terror. By the time the sun reaches its peak, the proud army of Edward II has ceased to exist as a fighting force. The rout is total. When the smoke clears, nearly 10,000 English soldiers lie dead or captured, among them some of the finest knights of the realm. The Scots count their own fallen in the hundreds, perhaps only 400 slain, many crushed beneath the chaos rather than cut down in combat. It is a victory so lopsided, so absolute, that even chroniclers struggle to believe it. Robert the Bruce surveys the carnage in silence. He does not gloat, he does not smile. His hand rises, and he calls the pursuit to halt. "Enough," he commands. "The day is ours." As the sun sinks over the field, the banners of England lie torn in the mud, trampled beneath Scottish boots. The once invincible army has dissolved into legend and shame. King Edward himself flees south, his crown now a burden rather than a symbol. The impossible has happened. The few have triumphed over the many. Bannockburn is no mere battle. It is the rebirth of a nation. The battlefield of Bannockburn lies still beneath a crimson dusk. Smoke drifts from the trampled heather, the air thick with the stench of blood and sweat. Broken spears jut from the earth like ribs from a carcass. The moans of the dying mingle with the cries of crows circling overhead. What began as England's proudest army has become an open grave. King Edward II flees the field with only a handful of knights. His armor, once polished and gleaming, is smeared with mud. His banner, the golden lions of Plantagenet, lies crushed in the mire behind him. The man who marched north as a conqueror now rides south a fugitive. Sir Giles d'Argentan, one of his last loyal companions, turns back to face the pursuing Scots, buying his king a few precious moments at the cost of his life. Edward reaches Dunbar, where he finds refuge with the Earl of March, one of the few Scottish nobles who still side with England. There, under the cover of night, the King of England boards a ship and flees home. The great campaign to reclaim Scotland has ended not in victory, but in humiliation. Back on the field, Robert the Bruce walks among the wreckage of empire. The sight is terrible and awe-inspiring. Thousands of English dead, nobles captured by the dozen, Humphrey de Bohun, the Earl of Hereford, Robert Clifford, John Seagrave, the flower of English chivalry brought low by men they once called peasants. And yet, in this hour of triumph, Bruce remains calm. He forbids the slaughter of prisoners. The war has been bloody enough, and he knows that mercy, wisely given, can be as powerful as fear. The captured lords will be ransomed, their wealth used to rebuild a country that England tried to erase. But Bruce's restraint is not mercy alone, it is strategy. He understands that Bannockburn, however glorious, is not the end. England is wounded, not dead. Another king may rise, another army may march. True independence must be secured not just by sword, but by diplomacy and endurance. In the days following the battle, word spreads across the realm. Messengers ride through glen and valley, proclaiming what few dared believe. The English are defeated, and Scotland stands free. The people pour from their villages to welcome Bruce's returning warriors, hailing him as the good King Robert. The churches ring their bells, though the Pope has long excommunicated him. For once, heaven and earth seem to move in Scotland's favor. The victory at Bannockburn sends shockwaves through Europe. France, at odds with England, quietly begins to court Scottish favor. Even Rome, once condemning Bruce as a rebel and murderer, hesitates. The world must now reckon with the fact that a kingdom the size of a province has humbled the most powerful crown in Christendom. Yet Bruce himself remains wary. He has seen too much death to mistake glory for security. He spends the following years consolidating power, tearing down English strongholds, and binding the Scottish clans under a single rule. Those who once wavered between sides now swear loyalty, not to the crown alone, but to the idea of Scotland as a nation that belongs to its own people. In the English court, silence reigns. Edward II's pride is shattered. His nobles whisper that the king who lost Bannockburn has lost the right to rule. The same arrogance that drove him to war now isolates him, and within a few years he will face rebellion at home. Bannockburn was more than a victory. It was vengeance for years of humiliation, a reversal so total that it seemed divine. The might of an empire had been broken by the will of a nation that refused to kneel. As the sun sets over the quiet fields of Bannockburn, the banners of Scotland flutter gently in the wind. No longer the rags of rebellion, but the standard of a sovereign kingdom. Robert the Bruce stands at the heart of it all, no longer the fugitive, no longer the outlaw, but a king in truth. He knows the war is not yet done, but for the first time in his life, he allows himself a rare moment of stillness. The field of Bannockburn is his answer to the world and to history itself, that Scotland will never again be conquered by pride. The echoes of Bannockburn did not fade with the dying cries of the defeated. They rolled across the glens and through the years, reshaping the very soul of Scotland. What had begun as the desperate struggle of an outlaw king became the rebirth of a nation. In the months after the battle, Robert the Bruce stood not as a conqueror, but as a builder. He moved carefully through the broken land, dismantling the last of England's garrisons and restoring law where chaos had reigned. The nobles who once doubted him now bent the knee in earnest, for his victory had proven something greater than lineage or force. It had proven legitimacy. Scotland's people, long crushed under English rule, began to live not in fear, but in pride. Villages rebuilt, trade routes reopened, and the fields that had been trampled by war once again yielded grain. Bruce's government, though stern, was just, his authority no longer drawn from claim or crown alone, but from the faith of those who followed him. Yet the victory was fragile. England, though wounded, remained a vast empire, and its kings would never forgive the humiliation of Bannockburn. For years, border skirmishes flickered like brushfire, and English envoys demanded submission under threat of invasion. Bruce answered not with bluster, but with diplomacy. Alliances with France, appeals to the Pope, and shrewd marriages that strengthened Scotland's standing among Europe's powers. In 1320, Bruce's nobles gathered at Arbroath Abbey to send forth a declaration that would echo through history. The Declaration of Arbroath, written in the voice of the Scottish people, proclaimed to the Pope and to all of Christendom that freedom was not the gift of kings, but the right of a nation. Its words burned with conviction. It is in truth not for glory, nor riches, nor honors that we are fighting, but for freedom, for that alone, which no honest man gives up but with his life. Those words became the soul of Scotland. After Bannockburn, in 1328, the struggle finally reached its end. The Treaty of Edinburgh-Northampton was signed between Robert the Bruce and Edward III of England, formally recognizing Scotland as an independent kingdom and Bruce as its rightful king. For the first time in generations, the border between the two realms was drawn in peace rather than blood. It was not a victory of armies, but of endurance, the triumph of a man who had lost everything and learned to rebuild from ashes. Bruce, once branded murderer and traitor, had become the father of his country. As age and illness crept upon him, Bruce withdrew from war and court intrigue, seeking quiet in the abbey at Cardross. There, as the tide murmured against the western shore, he looked back upon a life carved from exile, betrayal, and battle. He had seen kings rise and fall, had killed for a crown and nearly died for it. But in the end, he had forged something that no sword could destroy, a people who believed in themselves. When he died in 1329, his body was buried at Dunfermline Abbey, among the kings of old. His heart, as legend holds true, was carried to the Holy Land by his loyal knight, Sir James Douglas, fulfilling a promise the king could never keep in life. It never returned, but the heart of Scotland no longer needed to. For what began at Bannockburn did not end with Robert the Bruce. It became the pulse of a nation. From that day forward, the world would remember. Scotland was not conquered, not granted, but won by courage, by cunning, and by the unyielding will of a people who chose freedom over fear. The fugitive had become a king. The king had become a legend, and the legend had become Scotland itself. Thanks for watching. Click subscribe and dive into this playlist next. More untold stories of empires, warriors, and history-changing battles are just a click away.